Oh no.
Good morning. Good morning. Was it longer than usual?
No, you
No,
were
you
Huh?
froze.
frozen.
Hello?
No.
No, no.
I'm
Okay.
freezing?
Yes.
Yes. Oh no.
Oh, no. One of those. Is it working?
Not really. Okay, so
Good
let's
It's one of
morning,
those
everyone.
mornings, eh?
Maria restart your computer. Restart your computer.
Okay, good morning, everybody. While Maria has a little technical glitch,
Okay.
it seems like we have technical glitches every day.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Maria.
And what we're going to do is we're going to ask Maria to restart her computer. So if she does that, we'll have an opportunity to see her. And I'm going to straight away, we're talking today about something called lack of ambition. And when I was writing this yesterday, I was really excited because there are so many things we can do about a lack of ambition. But I'm going to pass you over to Mary Pierre very quickly, who's going to just talk to you about how you can share this morning.
Yes, so you have the text in the comment that you can copy paste it when you share so people understand why they should listen to the podcast this morning. And of course, you will find it the arrow just beside where you write your comment so you can share on every social media platform. But you will see that when you click on the arrow, you can send it directly by messenger, by text message. So if you have someone in mind that really needs to hear this podcast, send it directly by messenger, send it by text message. Those one-on-one is the best way to make sure that they will click on the link and listen to the podcast this morning. And of course, who we want to share it to everyone that say, oh, that's good enough. Oh, that's good enough, good enough, good enough. That you know that they have potential, but they say that's good enough. Okay, so make sure that you send it directly by messenger or text message. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to bring Maria back with us, and we're gonna be good, I think. Usually, when we restart her computer, that's that's the
Fine.
best way to make sure that everything will work perfectly. Voila, voila. And she's coming back. Doo-doo-doo.
And there she is.
Voila!
I was following.
We're
It's good.
back.
Okay,
I'm not
it's
freezing.
no, you're
You're
good.
good.
So you're
Okay.
okay to go into the subject, Maria.
Yeah, I was following you guys on the live. So let's dive in right away. Okay. So raise your standards. Raise your standards. I want to start today with a very uncomfortable question. It really is because if I could go on and on with this podcast forever. Okay. It's really uncomfortable. Uh, when did good enough become good enough for you? Okay. Ask yourself that question. When did good enough become good enough for you? Think about that. When did we stop asking, how good could I really become? And start saying, that's okay. That's enough. Nobody complained. It was good enough. Nobody else does the same thing. At least I tried. At least I tried. Be careful, my friends, because mediocrity rarely walks into your life announcing itself, hello, I am mediocrity. No, 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 no. It creeps up on us slowly, slowly, slowly. It starts whispering, this is good enough, Maria. Don't break your head. This is good enough. Let me just close this. Hang on. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. There we go. Okay. So I'm focused here. Okay. A little by little, good enough becomes your new standard. I want you to imagine something you probably have somewhere in your own home. It's called a thermostat. And I really, really love this example. So let's say you set your thermostat at 21 degrees. The temperature rises to 22. Nothing happens. It falls back to 21. That's it. That's all easy peasy. Okay, fine. But suddenly it falls to 19. What happens? The system activates. Why? Because the thermostat has a standard. It is saying below this point, it is unacceptable. And I want you to remember this today. You have a thermostat too. You have a thermostat for your business. You have a thermostat for your finances, for your relationships, for your healthy habits, for your preparation, the way you prepare yourself for events, for your punctuality, for the way you treat people, for the quality of work you produce, for what you tolerate from yourself. And every one of us has a setting. The question isn't, what do you want? No, no, no. The question is, what have you decided is no longer acceptable? When I read this, I said, oh, this really speaks to me a lot, because those are two completely different things. Someone can say, I want to earn 100K. Wonderful. That's a goal. But if their standard says, I work when I feel like it, I make calls when it's convenient, I cancel commitments to myself, I don't track my numbers, I don't follow up, then their goal says 100K, but their thermostat is still set much lower than that. And that is the problem. And eventually they'll return to the original setting. So goals aren't enough. That's what we need to understand. Yesterday I did a coaching, and the goal she gave me, because we had read already, I said, okay, great. I love your goal. What are you going to work? Where are you going to work more? And I think this is where a lot of people don't get it. It's not just about setting goals. It's not just about a vision board. Okay. It's a lot more than that. You have to change your standards. So you've heard us, and I've repeated this in another podcast. Best meeting ever, best barbecue ever. Of course it's true. People saying, oh, come on, Marie. Of course it's true, because my thermostat is set very high, which means that I will never redo something at an equal to standard or lower standard than the last time. Take an example, this podcast. Just go to last year's podcast and you'll see we are not the same podcasters. Every single time we're becoming a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, because the way we prepare for it is getting better and better. And obviously with AI and technology, and not being hard-headed, because a lot of people are hard-headed. I've always done it this way. I'm going to continue doing. No, 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 no. I leave my office and I'm going to go to Melanie Miller's house. Even if I know how to get there, I'm going to put in the GPS. I want to know if there's traffic ahead. I want to know, do I take an alternative road, right? So we must adapt. So yesterday's excellent becomes today's mediocrity if we stop growing. Think about that. Something that made you extraordinary 10 years ago may be completely ordinary today. The world moved. People changed. Technology changed. Communications changed. Your customers changed. Did you? That's the question. Oh my God, did it speak to me, especially now that we just got a major change in our delivery charges. Oh, Melanie, Marie-Pierre, I got one call, and, I said to the person, it's your circle of concern. What are you going to do? Unless you're planning to take a plane and go meet the owners, give it up, stay in your circle of influence, sell more, make more money, move on. We're not going to talk about something that we have absolutely no power on. And I don't want to bring the light on something that we shouldn't bring the light on. We need to bring the light on doing one more, sales event, one more recruiting event. Keep focused, circle of influence, and keep focused. Remember, we covered that in another podcast with the first things first. Stay focused on what's going to grow your business. So today's podcast is about healthy ambition. We need to ask ourselves completely different questions. What am I capable of becoming? So I was sharing yesterday with Melanie and Marie-Pierre, I have this hunger inside of me where I want to have a T4 slip. of an entrepreneur in the 8 digits. I've never done it before. And somebody's going to say to me, well, what would you need more money for? I don't need more money. I mean, it's because I can. I know I have the intelligence. I know I have the capacity. I know I can be more. That's it. I'm completely about becoming a better version of myself and never being in competition with anybody else. I can't jump that high, of course, if I don't raise my thermostat. So when the podcast came into my life, it was for me to have more tools to raise that thermostat. So where I want to leave you before I leave you in the science part of this with Melanie Miller, okay? Your new standard, I'm prepared the day before. That becomes my new standard. My new standard to go higher. I just want to give you a few examples of that. I never give any more somebody a training to prepare for the night before or sometimes the same day. Today, and I think in 2026 has been our best year where people actually have 2 weeks to get better. So there's a new standard, one step, then the other, then the other. And here's where mediocrity becomes very dangerous. Mediocrity isn't always about failure. Sometimes mediocrity looks pretty successful. That's why it's so difficult to recognize. You can be making money and you can have settled just the same. You may have a new title, but you may have settled just the same. You might be married for 40 years, but you have stopped investing in each other. You've become what I call indifferent and you don't even realize it. This is not about a healthy 40 years being together. Am I comfortable or am I growing? It's a terrible place to be. And it's a terrible place to be when we become complacent. Complacency basically is telling me, just sit down and wait for your death roll to be called. I mean, basically, remember, Melanie, when I told you, oh my God, might as well go on the auto route and wait for the next man. Anyways, so sometimes I think of myself, I'm so happy we're doing the podcast. It makes me articulate things a little bit better, a little softer. So 3 questions I want to leave you with, okay? And you don't have to take notes. I think you're really gonna hold them in your mind. Number 1, what am I tolerating? Okay. Number 2, what would better look like right now? And number 3, what will I no longer accept? Let me tell you, preparing the podcast yesterday, I asked myself exactly those same 3 questions I'm asking you, and I got my answer. Okay. So that's no longer who I am, is where I've gone from last night. My goals and my standards that I'm no longer willing to settle for or accept have changed. And that has made me move, thanks to that podcast, to my new season, which I know is awaiting for me. But again, thanks to the podcast last night, I raised a little bit more my thermostat. Now, the science behind here, we're going to go see Melanie Miller.
Thank you very much, Maria. And just before we go on to the science, I want to tell you a personal story because I have very much grown into that person, a person who wants more. I wasn't always like that. However, this weekend, my husband is going to be away. I had planned to do a sale over the weekend, but because I've damaged my knee, I can't be going up and downstairs all the time and bringing boxes and things. So this morning and tonight's my live sale, and I can't stand up for the length of time it usually takes. So I said, okay, well, I could just cancel everything and have the weekend off. No, I can't do that because I want more. So this morning I came up with a plan. My plan's formulated like at 6:30 this morning. I'm writing out my plan for the weekend. And it's going to be different to what I had imagined. But I didn't give up just because I had an excuse, because I want more, like Maria says. So sometimes having goals that are too small can be worse than having no goals at all. We set a sales goal that is very similar to what we sold last month. We decide to recruit one person when we know we're already talking to somebody interested. We choose something that feels comfortable and achievable. Over the years, I've met many people who set goals they already know they are likely to achieve. I would include myself in that in my early years. It looks like goal setting. Psychologically, however, something very different may be happening. We may be protecting ourselves from having to stretch. There is no need to develop a new skill. There is very little risk of failure. We remain safely inside our comfort zone. This made me wonder, why do human beings naturally conserve effort, adapt to our circumstances, and settle into comfortable patterns? Why do some people continue to stretch themselves while others seem perfectly content to remain where they are? There is some fascinating science behind it. The brain likes efficiency. The first thing to understand is that the human brain is extraordinarily expensive organ to run. Although it represents only a small percentage of our body weight, it consumes a significant proportion of our energy. Consequently, the brain has evolved to become very efficient. It loves habits. It loves familiar routines. It loves knowing what happens next. Once we become competent at something, the brain tries to make that behavior more automatic so that it requires less conscious effort. Normally, this is extremely useful. Imagine having to relearn how to drive your car every morning. The problem arises when that same efficiency becomes complacency. We become comfortable doing what we already know what to do. A bigger goal means uncertainty. It means learning. It may mean rejection. It may mean failure. Our brain quite reasonably asks, why would I put myself through all that when what I'm doing now is working perfectly well? That may be comfortable. It is not necessarily growth. There's another psychological phenomenon called adaptation. Human beings are remarkably good at becoming accustomed to their circumstances. Something that once seemed extraordinary gradually becomes normal. Think about your first promotion, your first large paycheck, your first big sales month. Initially, it feels wonderful. Eventually, it becomes your new normal. This can work in two directions. We can adapt upwards, where higher achievement becomes normal, or, unfortunately, we can also adapt to circumstances that are well below what we originally wanted. We start saying, it's not so bad, I'm doing okay, it's probably good enough. There is nothing wrong with being content with what we have. Gratitude is extremely important. Complacency, however, is different from contentment. Contentment says, I appreciate what I have. Complacency says, I no longer need to grow. That is where lack of ambition can begin to limit us. Psychology gives us another useful idea called the Goldilocks principle. Just like the porridge in the children's story, a challenge can become too easy, too difficult, or just right. If a goal is far too easy, the brain has very little reason to become fully engaged. There's no challenge. There's no need to develop. There may be very little satisfaction when we achieve it because deep down we already know we would. At the other extreme, if the goal seems completely impossible, we may become overwhelmed. The threat system becomes more active, anxiety increases, and we may withdraw rather than engage. Somewhere between the two lies the ideal challenge. It is difficult enough that we have to stretch, yet achievable enough that our brain can imagine success. That is where motivation can flourish. Perhaps a good ambition make us say, I don't quite know how I'm going to do that yet, but I believe I could. That little word yet is very important. This brings me to something I think is particularly important in leadership and business. As we improve, our baseline standards should move with us. Imagine somebody joining Tupperware and selling $500 in their first month. That may be an enormous achievement. A year later, if they've developed a large customer base, gained experience, built a VIP group, and learned how to sell effectively, should 500 still represent extraordinary performance? Probably not. Their capability has changed. Therefore, their standards should change too. This happens in every area of life. What once required enormous concentration eventually becomes routine. That is neuroplasticity at work. Repeated behaviors strengthen neural pathways and become easier and more efficient. The danger is that we continue setting goals for the person we used to be rather than the person we have become. As our competence increases, our challenge needs to increase with it. There is an important distinction here. Ambition does not mean constantly telling ourselves, nothing I do is ever good enough. That would be psychologically exhausting. Healthy ambition allows us to celebrate what we have achieved while asking, what am I capable of next? We can be proud of today's achievement without making it tomorrow's ceiling. Perhaps that is the balance. Napoleon Hill identified lack of ambition as one of his reasons why people fail. Modern psychology helps us understand why ambition can disappear. Our brains like efficiency. We become accustomed to our circumstances. Comfortable behavior becomes automatic. Consequently, unless we deliberately introduce ourselves to new challenges, yesterday's extraordinary performance can quietly become today's comfort zone. Perhaps we should occasionally look at our goals and ask ourselves, is this genuinely what I want, or is it simply what I know I can achieve? If we already know exactly how we're going to reach the goal, perhaps occasionally the goal is not stretching us enough. The challenge should not be so enormous that we cannot imagine succeeding. It should, however, be large enough to require something more from us, a new skill, a new habit, a little more courage, a little more discipline. Perhaps that is healthy ambition. Being grateful for where we are, proud of how far we have come, while remaining curious about how much further we could go. As our abilities grow, our standards would grow with them. Yesterday's extraordinary can become today's ordinary. The question is whether today's ordinary is going to become tomorrow's starting point or tomorrow's stopping point. And with that, I leave you in the hands of Marie Pierre, who's going to help us know whether we are truly ambitious. Over to you, Marie Pierre.
Thank you, Melanie. So, yes, today the question is not exactly are you ambitious? Because I know a lot of people will say yes, but it's really a harder question to answer is what have you accepted that now is the normal? So, because your life is not shaped by what you want, but it's also shaped by what you tolerate. So, this is where that mediocrity becomes dangerous because mediocrity does not usually look that terrible. So, it looks often just acceptable. So, oh, that's good enough. Oh, nobody will notice. Oh, at least I try. I'm doing more than most people. I will fix it next time, or nobody is complaining. But the real question here is are you using other people's standard to justify staying below your own standard? Because ambition is not about being better than someone else, it's not about being having the biggest house or the highest title or most money or biggest team, but the healthy ambition asks what am I capable of becoming, and am I living anywhere close to it? So that is today's quiz. So not am I successful, but have I become comfortable with a version of myself that I know that is below my potential? So for every question, you can answer A, B, or C. So you want to choose the answer that sounds most like how you normally operate, and not your best day, but your usual standard. So let's start with question number one. So you are surrounded by people who do less than you. So do you A, sometimes use that as a proof that I am already doing enough? B, I compare myself to my own potential and not to the lowest standard around me? Or C, I constantly compare myself to the highest performer and rarely feel good enough? Question number two. Something in your life has been disorganized for months. So what do? A, I've gotten used to it. B, I choose one area and create a measurable standard to improve it. Or C, I try to fix everything at once and often burn out. Question number three. Which sentence sounds most like you? A, I'm already doing more than most people. B, am I doing what I know I'm capable of doing? Or C, nothing I do is ever enough. Question number four. Your results are acceptable but not improving. So what do? A, if not nobody is complaining, I usually leave things as they are. B, I ask what small stretch would move me to my next level. Or C, I make drastic change because acceptable results make me uncomfortable. And question number five. How do you usually think about ambition? A, wanting too much can feel unnecessary. B, ambition means becoming more of what I'm capable of becoming. Or C, ambition means always needing to achieve more than everyone else. So did you get mostly A's, mostly B's, or mostly C's? So if you have mostly A's, you are the comfortable settler. So you're probably capable, experienced, and dependable. You may already be doing more than many people around you, but that may also be exactly what has made you comfortable. So when the people around us expect less, it becomes easy to believe that, oh, I'm doing enough. So the danger is that enough can quietly become a ceiling. So your next level is not about becoming disaster, not satisfied. That's I don't know. It doesn't come out that word with your life, but it's about becoming curious about your potential again. So where am I accepting something simply because I've gotten used to it? And so you do not need to raise 10 standard today. Raise one and then live it consistently enough that it becomes your new normal. Now, if you have mostly B's, you are the intentional stretcher. So you understand the healthy ambition. You do not need to outperform everyone around you. You measure yourself against your own potential so you can appreciate progress without becoming complacent. You can raise expectation without demanding perfection, and you understand that improvement is not an insult to what you already have achieved. So it's simply the next expression of your growth. So continue asking, what is that next standard that would stretch me without breaking me? So that question will help you becoming growing, keep you growing without turning ambition into exhaustion. And if you have it mostly C, now you are the perfection chaser. So you have high standard. You care deeply about quality. You probably notice detail that other people will miss, and that can be a tremendous strength. But healthy ambition and perfectionism are not the same thing. So a raised standard should create a growth. It should not create that constant self rejection. So if nothing is ever enough, if every accomplishment immediately becomes another deficiency, then you can never celebrate. Then your standard may no longer be serving you. Your opportunity is to replace that perfection with progressive excellence. So what would better look like and not perfect? So you are allowed to grow and appreciate yourself at the same time. So just to close it with a question, just ask yourself for your leadership. So if you lead people, if everyone on your team would adopt your current standard, would your organization become stronger or weaker? Usually, that will tell you a lot. So, again, you don't want to raise 10 standards at the same time. raise one. So, but choose one today. So, what is that one thing that you will no longer accept for yourself? And what is that new standard for you? And how will you know that you are living that standard? So, for example, and you want to make sure that it's measurable. So, not I will work harder, but for example, I will make 5 recruiting contacts every working day. Or not, I will be more organized, but every Sunday evening, my week will be planned before I go to bed. So, something that you can really measure that will help you to have that standard that you can really track it every week. Because, again, the question that you want to ask at the end is always about not your goal to set always a bigger goal, but it will always begin with what is that thing that you stop tolerate the standard that will create your next level. So on that, I wish you a beautiful day, a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye everyone.